Hi, and welcome to the World Networking Podcast. Today, we have an episode talking about geology, various elements of how that stuff forms, and the scenes of nature that we're able to capture in our day-to-day lives. I meant to dive into some subjects with Cactus deeper on how Canada looks and some fun facts around the culture and diversity there, but I got a little long-winded with my discussion on geology, and I admit I got a little excited to show some rocks and display nature to you, but we're going to come back at some point and get together and make sure that we connect on the subjects further, as we had a lot of fun doing this. And I really appreciate Cactus joining, and I hope that you guys enjoy. I wanted to make an announcement. We're actually going to be selling merch. I have the first merch shirt. We're going to modify a bit of the designs on the front so things fit a little better. As you can see, it's a little long. Well, it's a little long, but we want to make it a little wider. Bring this out a little and clean it up a little for you. We have some logos on the back. I am happy with that. I think it looks great. And honestly, I'm excited that we have this merch available. Anything that we have ordered will come back partly to the podcast. We're going to be using that to help fund our project. Any support helps, and we really appreciate you guys joining us every episode. Make sure to rate the episode, comment, share it along. We're really looking to expand our horizons on what we're doing here, and honestly, I can't wait to travel into some new subjects like philosophy, inspirational quotes, things that have tethered to my soul in a form where I feel expressing that could maybe help benefit the audience. You know, take something home and really run with it. And you know, like I do with the rocks in this episode. Oh man, I really hope you enjoy, and from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you guys being here. It's a great day. I hope you're having a great day too. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started today. I have AquaticCactus with me, and I'm excited to dive into our freeform discussion. We're aiming to bring facts that we've discovered on our journeys so far into our cultures and the cultures around us. I wanted to touch on some local culture that I have in Northern California, Plymouth County. There's the whole system people refer to as the Lakes Basin system. We have 100 lakes in Plymouth County. It's a big number. Yeah, it's massive. I mean, when you really think about it, and you can camp at all of them. Some of them you can only hike or bike to, so it varies. But the whole Lakes Basin system was created by glaciers. So there used to be a bunch of, well, ice, obviously, that came down the whole West Coast stretch. It's what helped form the Rocky Mountains as we know it. And then not just the West Coast, but all over North America. I'm sure Canada has similar situations, of course, being colder. You have more ice. So it's
sure do.
I don't know geographically what that looks like, how your mountains look.
Well, most of the Rocky Mountains actually reside in Canada. It's all part of the Canadian Shield. The Canadian Shield stretches apart across most of central Canada, pretty much like right across the borders of where a lot of the lower provinces meet the upper territories. So we have a lot of Canadian Shield up in the British Columbia mountain ranges, above the Olympic Peninsula, and in the Olympic Peninsula, which connects into Washington.
Yeah, that's the part I know. Yeah, you're right. Because Washington is where the Pacific Crest Trail cascades to Canada, and that leads off to like the hardest part of the hike is the mountains.
So there's that part, and then a lot of it goes underground, which makes a lot of the ground in northern Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and places like that very difficult to farm. It's not very arable. It's just very, very difficult to farm that land because a lot of it has rock deposits just below the surface, or just beneath where you would want your soil layers to be drawing nutrients from. But instead of aquifers, you end up with a lot of rock deposits, and then that extends all the way back into like the tail end of Manitoba and Ontario, and up by Hudson's Bay and the ridges down into Thunder Bay. You get down towards the Great Lakes, you get more of the Canadian Shield comes back up, and you get mountainous ranges again. All of that being formed from glacial push.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the amount of force when you really look at the mountains, you know, and you walk around the mountains, man, it's a very, very physical element around us. Nature is always moving and shifting, and if you don't realize that, you'll soon realize if you visit a place after a few years, or in some cases a few months, like the coast of Oregon. I grew up around visiting and traversing a few of the rocky beaches, and they soon became more sandy beaches. They're distinctly around like 2005, 2006. I remember going to this beach called Bob's Beach, or Bob's Creek, excuse me. And there used to be like this, I want to say 12 to 14 foot rock that looked like a snail. And it was just super cool. Like, there used to be tide pools and all sorts of stuff. And then, like, I think a year later, like literally a year later, the storm came in, and there was like 15 feet of sand that just covered everything I knew. And to this day, like, you can see the peak of the rock coming out. Like, and it's crazy to think, like,
it's just buried. Wow.
Like 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, like, I walked underneath that, you know, and now it's just good luck. Like, it's there to stay. And, or you know, until the near future in another storm and something comes and sweeps that all away. Like, erosion on the coastlines, especially in the Pacific right now, is very devastating to a lot of those natural habitats. But a lot of it is just the natural course of the ocean too. It's a very vigorous environment. These creatures that are there, like, the amount of years it's taken them to adapt to that one little specific role, you know, in this ecosystem. You get it covered by sand, that something physical. Like, again, like glaciers moving through a mountain. Like, what's going to happen? The stuff's got to go somewhere. Like,
yeah, it's like ocean currents, where, like, we know that continental drift, as much as it is still a theory, we also know that essentially, when volcanic activity happens beneath the plates, and it causes the plates to separate from each other, the tectonic plates to separate from each other and create rifts, and you get ocean ridges. And it's the plates creating new land from the crust, the molten crust, hitting the water, rapidly cooling, and then creating new rock and new magmatic rock. I think that's the term. Don't quote me on that, but essentially the rock that's created when the lava hits the incredibly cold water that is at those deep parts of the ocean. So Africa at one point was quite close to North America, and that's how Pangea would have been formed. You see, like, those coasts fit perfectly, but you get continental drift. So eventually, Canada's going to be right next to Hawaii. We're going to be in prime position. So you better watch out, Hawaii. We're coming for your real estate.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, one thing I grew up finding again on the Oregon coast, with it being rocky, you would get it. So the technical term is strata. You get better strata. So the way, like, how much have you rock hunted, out of curiosity, if you've ever?
Not a ton. I have a general knowledge of different types of rock, different places you would find different types of shale, schist, things like that, hardstone and clay. I understand, like, geological distribution, but in terms of actual, like, being a rock hound, pretty much none. I like to look at it and be like, oh, that's pretty. Put it back, move on with my day.
Yeah, you have, like, I would say above average appreciation for rocks already, because a lot of people don't even think that far into it, like, about where to find this stuff. I like that stuff because, for one, understanding where minerals come from, understanding the elements around you. Like, if you really, really need to survive and you got rocks and sticks around you, man, you got to figure something out. Like, or else you're going to be that guy that's
you gotta know.
Well, you're putting slate in the fire and it's exploding and you're wondering why,
No, that's exactly it. And then, like, even understanding what types of mineral deposits and geological formations you have around you can give a pretty good indication of as to whether or not you're near an aquifer, or you might be near a hidden riverbed that's recessed into a chasm, and you wouldn't be able to find it without acknowledging, this is sedimentary rock that's been eroded, and you can see water erosion. So where did that water erosion come from? And, where is this water gone? Is this still a visible stream somewhere? That'll be further down the rock face. But, without any form of knowledge in that regard, you don't have that base understanding, and then you don't even understand where you'd be able to farm, or just based on, again, like, if you go into the northern Manitoba or northern Saskatchewan more so, and you start getting into those deep rock beds right underneath all of what you would assume would be tillable land and arable land, you're not going to be able to harvest anything, or you'll have an incredibly hard time harvesting. You kind of need to have an understanding of, the land you have around you, and that includes the rocks.
Oh, 100%. There's, like, it's like what you were mentioning with the land that's hardly farmable. I was going to ask you, you said the elevation's below sea level?
I believe let me just look in terms of.
It's probably above, but very.
I think
low.
It's above.
The reason I say that is because of Death Valley. Because I know Death Valley is one of the lowest places on Earth.
Pretty high.
Well, you are in the North America.
The lowest point in the province is 700 feet above sea level. The highest point in the province is 4,600 feet above sea level.
Now, taking into consideration what we've talked about, the glaciers, that proves it. That those rocks had to go somewhere. They pile. It's just like a big bucket. All these little valleys and stuff. They have all sorts of compressed minerals and such. And not to mention, like, I don't know about you, but I totally believe that the Earth was. Well, I mean, we know the Earth was covered with water, at points, but you can really find that stuff in the mountains. You can find fossils from coastal regions in some of the mountains I grew up in. We have a spot in Taylorsville, California, that it's like fossil I think it's Fossil Mountain, Fossil Hill. People would take kids out there to crack open geodes, and we'd find, snails. Like, you could find, what's that famous, the the scarab looking things that are old.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
beetles. I can't quite remember.
I know it starts with a T.
I believe. Beetle.
Trilobite.
Trilobite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, trilobites are if you're not familiar, that they look like roly-polies. I call them roly-polies so much. Pill bugs. They look like pill bugs.
Pill bug's also not the correct term, but yeah.
Yeah, I forgot. You remember the correct term?
Not off the top of my head. I always see it and then I forget what they're called.
Dude, everyone has slang for them.
Yeah. Armadillidium vulgare.
Yeah. Yeah.
An easy one. The common pill bug, potato bug, woodlouse, roly-poly, slater, doodlebug, or carpenter.
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit of variation to those. I didn't realize that.
It's the woodlouse.
Really cool, though. I love, like, if you think about that little bug could have really originated some of its genes from those oceanic creatures. You get that hard shell, and like, oh, use my little legs, go on the land and start grubbing for some of this plant vegetation, like
crocodiles and alligators. They've genetically unchanged for like 150 million years. They just evolved to walk on land and kill things there.
Yeah, chickens are a great example too. Just mini dinosaurs. It's all they are. Like, you're not gonna run a chicken. Like, chickens are domesticatable, but
it's crazy to think about how many land animals that are actually, like, how many different variations of land species we have given glaciation. So if Pangea did exist, and I'm not a geologist, I'm not a marine biologist, I'm not claiming to be an expert on any of this, but hear me out. If we know that most of the world's surface was covered in water, we also know that most of the highest points on Earth, Mount Everest, things like that, Kilimanjaro, there's points in the ocean where they would cover Everest and still have depth to spare.
yeah.
So, that being said, call me crazy, if most of the Earth was covered in water, it could have just been at a point where continental drift had all of the continents at a point where they were below sea level. And it just drifted to be above sea level. And new continental material, I'm assuming, would be created as well, which would help with that, as well as glaciation, melting. But it's weird to me because glaciers would melt from top down. Like, in my mind, they wouldn't melt from the bottom, which would be the coldest part of the glacier.
Well, you would think
I do know that part of the melting process of glaciers, once they're mostly melted, is warm water being forced underneath from the pressure of shifting glaciers. But like, if a glacier was taking up most of the space down to the seabed and was shaping the land from the bottom, you would assume there wouldn't be any room for warm water, or like very little. So,
well, if you think too that the hydrothermal vents,
I was going to say, unless the heating would have to come from the actual mantle, it's from the molten core.
If you think
that
about,
heat has to be released somewhere.
Exactly, like how active volcanic action used to be. It's not to say it isn't still, we have a very active planet, but a lot of the hot spots have dormanted for some time. And that's, it's a hard subject because no one really knows. That's the problem. Geology is full of holes, unironically. When I studied geology I took a geology course in Feather River College, and I enjoyed that. I learned a lot about some of these aspects to it, and the frustrating part though is, other than like carbon dating, there's really no way to know. It is a very theory based study. I mean, like, you got literally the hard facts, like literally minerals and stuff, and you can work with that. And that was mainly what we did, is observation, but a lot of it is interpreting what you see. And that means you have to really understand what they're made of and how those things have to be made, what conditions make those things. Then you can understand the physicality of that, how it moved, how it secured itself. Sedimentary, metamorphic, and igneous are the three types of forms. There's no other forms that we know of. I could be mistaken, but I believe that is just the three categories, because igneous being volcanic in nature. So you have like pumice, basalts, obsidian, agates. It's crazy because it's such a variation. When you think about it, it's basically chemical glass, like molten glass. And
yeah, it's really like, I guess each one has similar structures, but each one is a different subcategory based on geological materials available to form those rock types, to form each things. Because if things are more carbon based, they're going to be a different type of rock formation, versus if they're like other types of gas, or if there's more water in the area, there's going to be different types of formations just based on elemental availability. So it's fascinating that as much as there's 100 different types of rocks, you really break them down into three categories, or you really lump them into three categories and call it a day, or three main categories and call it a day.
Yes, exactly. Oh, and there's formed situations that are similar. Things have to be heated, but when you take minerals into play, minerals are their own thing. Like, they grow, they literally grow. So that's the part that fascinates me.
Minerals are weird,
dude. You're telling me it's still the craziest day.
Like an accumulation of particles that are all willing to participate. Essentially, they're all willing to bond in such a way that it creates a crystalline structure. Like, it's so interesting. Yeah, and like it creates the crystalline structure, and it's so strange that just became a thing. That it started out as one tiny speck and grew into something.
I'm curious if this will work. Trying something.
I put it like kind of behind it.
Yeah, let's see here.
Behind it and above the camera, otherwise it'll. Oh, almost. You had it for like a second there. You can kind of see the luster of it.
Oh yeah, no, it's really hard to do this actually.
Yeah, no, I trust me. I've shown enough things on camera. I learned it's really tough to try and light something like that.
These are cool though.
I was gonna say it's the rock inside the hollowed out. Yeah.
Yeah, that is an agate. This is
cool.
This is something my grandmother found on a beach. Yeah, she gave this to me years ago, and
I didn't realize. I'm gonna be honest. I've been saying that I have only ever read that word, and I've always read it as agate, not agate.
Yeah, I honestly I think it's I'm gonna look this up, but I believe it's a Native American term.
Exactly. I've only ever read that word, and I definitely thought it was agate before today. I wanted it to be a lot fancier.
No, excuse me. It was the other, the other. It was Greeks, about 3,000 years ago. So I couldn't remember if it was natives or Greeks. I mean, Latin and language is definitely correlating back. So, but I mean the word. So, what I think that's interesting about agates, and I'm not, I don't get huge into the whole rocks vibe thing. Like from handling rocks most of my life, I do feel like rocks have energy. I don't think that's a falsity. I think there's something to it where, like, you're touching something that's been in the earth for who knows how many years. Again, planet shifting, kinetic energy, friction, all these things. Like, I don't know.
That's the thing. We don't know how to measure it. Gonna get a little bit off topic here. We don't know how to measure it, but everything in the universe, if the Big Bang is accurate, has cosmic energy, has a level of energy, because it all stemmed from one point that expanded outwards, if the Big Bang is correct. That being said, all of that had residual energy. At some point, that energy would run out, but we also know that space is still expanding, or we theorize that space is still expanding. We assume it's expanding infinitely, which is kind of an interesting concept. But if any of that is true, it leads to a really interesting thought process of every particle in the universe, even the ones that are a part of a different thing or a part of what we perceive as a certain thing, stemmed from that moment. And so all of that would have almost like a memory. It's not a memory, obviously, because a rock, as far as we know, doesn't have a consciousness, or at least not something, again, we can measure, but there's an imprint of that moment of creation when it first came into being, whether it be, a small particle that grew and it became a mineral and it started the crystallization process, or it was atoms that compounded together and became a compound, or bonds that all became bonded together in rock formation. All of those things had a residual energy. They have ionic energy and chemical bonds that keep them together. And that in and of itself, I mean, I guess we do have a pretty core understanding of that, but it's crazy to think that that energy literally resides in every single thing. So it's not far-fetched to believe that rocks and crystals hold a level of energy in them, hold a certain level of connection in them. Like, I don't think it's unreasonable to believe at all.
No, and I definitely agree. Where I have trouble is when people correlate emotion to it. It's because you can't tell me that because I'm connected to agates, which is something I grew up around, that I'm not biased for that rock, that I'm not going to feel a vibe for that rock.
Like agates promote happiness. Like,
exactly.
You may have happy memories of agates, but I'm not going to be like, if you hold on to this agate, you will be happy.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, you have to swallow a reality pill and understand that, this is something that, for one, outdates you. Like, the rock didn't even know you were going to exist. Like, like when you really think about it, you're just borrowing. You're borrowing from the earth. Like, that's how I view rocks. That's why I give away a lot of rocks. I've never been selfish with that. There's certain, obviously, everyone has certain things they love and cherish, but it's one thing I've made sure to do is that I'm always like no rock's too good to give away, because I experienced that. It's time to give that back. It's time to appreciate
something in someone else.
Exactly. Letting go. It's taught me to let go, which is funny because, it's like you're collecting, you're getting, but it's that meaning behind the action. Like I took the time to check out the earth, and this is to remember, what beauty the earth brings. Like, I mean,
yeah, you have your initial positive reaction with it. You see, oh, that's actually really cool. I like the way that's grooved.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean,
that's so cool. It looks like there was almost something else on top of it and water eroded it. Or it may have just formed that way, but that divot is very interesting.
Yeah, it has
the coloration on that too.
It's got all sorts of little crystals in there, and they're just so small. Like, I mean,
that's like bluish from your perspective.
This is a partially blue, white, and orange agate. So the thing is, the blue agates are the rarest. I don't know if you knew that. There's I
just know names. I don't know.
It's obscure.
1.4% of all agates are blue agates.
Oh, it is literally something like that, though. It's like you can find white agates, orange agates, yellow agates.
What percentage of agates are blue? Let's find out. Of gates are blue? No. Agates.
Well, that's probably an impossible question to know, too, because agates are...
Yeah, Google doesn't even have an answer for that.
No one knows. It's kind of
come
just...
on.
Well, that's the constant shifting, is agates are being formed right now. Like, the
I'm going to devote my life to every agate being found and documented so I can figure out this percentage.
Like, when you really think about this kind of stuff, though, like, look at all the divots in that. That was tumbled by the sea. Like, when an agate forms, it has, like, crust on it. So when you find agates, some of them are, like, cloudy. It's because of the sodium in the water. Yeah, like...
leaches into the crystal formation.
Mm-hmm. Something to that degree. So
essentially fills the space in between the bonds.
I wish I had a... Hold on. Let me look for 1 second. This is a blue agate. It's covered in that stuff.
That's beautiful.
Dude, this is one of my favorite stones in the world. Like, in the world. Because it's just... like...
I was going to say, pull that back a little bit. Yeah. Just kind of, so rock here, and then light kind of here. Just off.
There we go. It's a little better. Still hard to see, but...
yeah, now you can see the streaks.
Yeah, there's swirls. It's like literally like just pentagons or not pentagons, but
summoning demons.
There's triangles. Like there's literally a perfect triangle in the center of this. Like tiny, but like I'm looking at that. That is 100% square. Like, couldn't get more straight. And this formed in the ocean. And it's like emerged this way. Like it's amazing. But when you think about how rare the color blue is in nature, this is one of those things that it's always been blue. Like This is from what we understand in geological terms, like volcanic action's always been a part of this planet. For what I know, this well, obviously most of the rocks, I mean, yes, this stuff is old. None of us in human history have predated it, so it's just,
I do.
blows me away, man. Like,
yeah, no, it's the age of rocks is actually crazy. Like, yeah, that's something that we talk about it all the time. You kind of toss around the term, the Earth is 4 billion years old. I think it's 4.6 billion years old. It's like, oh, that's really cool. And like when you think about how much that means, you think about how much our planet, if Pangea is real, right? And we assume that took 1 million or so years for continental drift to occur, then how many times has the planet entirely reshaped itself over 4.6 billion years? That concept to me is like, where did we start out? What was the original template of Earth? And did we have as much hydrogen as we did now? Was it entirely ocean-based? Was it mostly land-based? It's just a weird concept to think of how much terraforming the Earth has done to itself to get to where we are now.
Oh, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, it's the biggest construction project in the world, really, These are also blue agates.
But yeah, if you can light them from if you can light them from slightly above and then just pull your light back a little bit, so above and behind, and you should be, there you go. That's almost perfect. Nice, you can really see those.
Yeah, they're extremely blue, man. It's
crazy.
Breaking. Yeah. And a lot of people don't even know about these. They're that rare. Like, this is literally almost the whole collection. I've found like 40 of these in my whole life. Like, comparatively, I've found like probably 2,000 agates. So when you think about that ratio, it's
kind of crazy.
It is
less than like 1/10 of a percent.
Yeah.
0.02%.
Look at this. Like, I mean, this isn't an agate, but this is this is an agate, actually. This isn't metamorphic. A metamorphic rock. You see those white specks?
Yeah.
That's agate protruding out of stone.
Interesting.
It's like bubbling out of the rock. And so
you'd probably find that in places where water would crash against cliff faces.
Or yes. So that's part of the way agates are formed is, there's variation. If it's underwater, it's a different kind of agate. If most of the agates on the beach, like these ones I've been showing, from what I understand, it has to be lava that hits the surface of the sea, and it mixes with the oxygen and that cool air and the cool water with the salts again. Like, that's what really pressurizes
with the sediments at the bottom, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because you'd end up with sodium deposits and things like that.
Exactly. So it could take 100 years to tumble an agate. That's why you get thunder eggs. A thunder egg is just an agate that hasn't been tumbled. So
what does tumbled mean in that regard? Just out of curiosity.
So just like you would use a rock tumbler, the whole physical
break
process,
off the exterior shell.
You're just mimicking the ocean. The natural process.
Because it would wear down the edges of the rocks over time until eventually you're only left with the agate. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if you think about like a beach, this is how I think about beaches because I like looking for rocks. So it's like a big sluice box, and it's just shifting all those rocks.
Yeah.
And, some of them get lost, fall off the edge. Like there's a whole big trope. Like my grandma taught me to never like if an agate goes into the water, never run for it. It's gone. Like you just have to accept it. Like you're not gonna, in the whole ocean of
Not
things,
gonna find it.
you're not gonna find that. And
yeah, it's hard enough to find anything that you know exactly where you dropped and you're standing right above.
yeah, and that I really got on a tangent with this. I don't want to talk about agates all day, but I love
Become the
showing
agate podcast.
Yeah, and if I had a better definition camera right now, I would definitely show off more.
Just learning about agates.
I want to show you everyone this one thing before I switch back to my original point. But I just find it so cool, and while I'm talking about this, I'll bring up one of my ocean facts that I wanted to. This is a piece of coral, though. Just beautiful.
Carved, obviously, but yep.
Oh yeah, it's
lively as ever, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it's quite dead, but I mean the weight, just like
I can imagine it looks heavy in your hand. Look,
oh yeah,
looks like it's a stone.
It is heavier than my hydro flask, which a lot of people have hydro flasks. So
I have a knockoff hydro flask with Smurfs on it.
That's awesome, by the way. The ocean fact I wanted to bring up is something off of the Atlantic coast. They discovered pretty recently there's a whole network of coral, deep water coral, that's like one of the biggest corals.
Yeah, the largest deep sea coral that they've ever found.
Yeah, it's nuts, and I would just implore anyone to check that out. If you haven't looked into it, it's marvelous.
Huge.
They didn't know about that before.
Looks beautiful.
Yeah, I'm totally fascinated with that. So I just wanted to share that with everyone because it's a cool fact, and there's a few other things in North America and at least in the U.S. that I have to share going along, and one of them is my original point.
With the active life of the outdoors coming up, people are looking to be out and about more. Sasquatch Farms CBD brings organically grown products in the Sierra Nevadas from the soil to the people. Farmer John has worked on green projects on the farm since 2013. He looks forward to providing you with the highest quality soaps, salves, CBD tinctures, pre-rolls, along with some other fresh products. It takes a community in farming to survive, so any efforts made to support our farmers in the world helps to support our society as a whole. So remember, if you can't catch him out on the farmers market, catch him online at SasquatchFarmsCBD.com. That's SasquatchFarmsCBD.com. Thank you. Now back to the show.
Back in Plymouth County, when we were talking about the lakes and how there's 100 of them, we got off on that tangent with the glaciers. The reason I was going down that was to talk about Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe is one lake that a lot of tourists go to for both skiing and resorts. There's benefits to it because it's one side's California, other side's Nevada. I don't know if you knew that, Cactus, but yeah, the lake's literally like the border of the states, which is interesting. especially with the water rates. But
I was gonna say, imagine California absolutely loves that.
yeah, I'm sure like there's some level of like protection because it's Lake Tahoe, but it's also by Donner Pass, which is where the Donner Party, ate each other. So there's an extreme amount of moisture that collects in that basin each season, where we hope, at least. There's times it's been pretty dry, but Lake Tahoe never really goes empty for that reason. But what I'm getting at here is, and what a lot of people don't understand, is there's a tunnel. So a lot of these places used to be volcanoes. So there's old lava chutes and there's
volcanic tubes. Yeah.
There's always like some of the rumors that we would hear as kids, and like I've talked to quite a few people about this. They think that there's giant fish that swim through these like systems, and there's like its own current through these tunnels, and there's apparently fish the size of buses that are like in these lakes. I'm not kidding. Like a giant catfish or something to that degree, where they've been there so long that they've thrived. They have no competition, and no one has ever explored those tunnels successfully.
Like river monsters and things like that, where you see the 300 plus to 600 pound catfish that people use their arms to catch. And it's like,
yeah, it's insane.
Like 300 pound fish, like that is. And then you think like a megalodon would be 5 to 6 times the size of a regular shark. And like you start thinking like prehistoric animals and the size, and like giant squid, and they have different variations of like deep sea squid, and like 25 meters long. Like Jesus.
Oh, it's insane.
It's unfathomable the crazy things that our Earth produces. So, do I think that deep sea, like not deep sea, but like volcanic tube, extremely large fish could exist? Absolutely. Because in the absence of lava, you would have to assume that eventually aquifers would form and deep earth crust tunnels would develop waterways, as it were. And just as overland or above, I'm not sure how to say this, not underground water systems and lakes and rivers develop, you end up with natural formations. You would end up with that, with its own wildlife. And as you said, what's going to contest it down there? There's no birds. There would be very few reptiles. So any large semi-predatory aquatic life would have the potential to reach its maximum growth potential. And then, we don't know what fauna or anything else is underneath there. So you don't know what type of ecosystem, what type of small fish or bacteria they can feed off of, or what their food source is truly. So we have no idea to measure, or we have no metric to measure how big they could get, because we don't know what that ecosystem looks like in an unexplored shaft.
Well, and the problem is too that we know that there's, again with recent research, there's way more water under the crust of our Earth than previously realized. Like, if all the water came up, the Earth would be flooded, period. There's way more than the ocean. And it's, when you think about that, and you think about something like this, lava plumes, and you got these big silos, there could be basically underwater lakes, where these creatures are able to get air from the surface because of lava chutes. I personally think that's what's happened here, because when you think about
This whole conversation line is giving me Journey to the Center of the Earth vibes.
that's what fascinates me so much, is one of these lava chutes that we know, we people theorize connects, is Quincy's Crystal Lake to Lake Tahoe, and it's 80 miles, around 80 miles of like, well, and that's a straight shot, relatively. So if you think about a lava chute, like, there's no way it's a straight shot, right? Like, there's got to be bends, there's got to be weird connections, and
Yeah, because just in the shaping of it, like, it's flowing magma, but that's Occam's razor. That magma is going to find the path of least resistance, and then it's going to create the path of least resistance in its process. So it's never going to be a straight line. There's going to be, wherever there's aeration in the rocks, or there's already debris, or there's an aquifer, it's going to take over the easiest space. So that like you said, it's never going to be a straight shot. That's crazy to think.
Yeah, and then you think about the layers, and then water pressure, and all these dynamics underneath us. Like, it is crazy to think about. Genuinely, I mean, you and I, where we're sitting right now, directly underneath us, there's stuff flowing, there's stuff moving. Like, it can't be understated how big our world is. With how small we make it out to be. We're on the top layer, we're just on the shavings, and it's a very, very miraculous thing. Like, the other part to this story is there's another lake. So there's a lake called Pyramid Lake. So it's 71.2 miles roughly from Tahoe to Pyramid Lake. This has been confirmed that there is a tunnel connecting those two. They have put stuff in Lake Tahoe, and it has come up in Pyramid Lake, including bodies. So the mafia used to throw people in barrels or whatnot, in Lake Erie, not Lake Erie.
Wow, that's eerie.
I can't think of it. The lake that Hoover Dam holds, lake that Hoover Dam holds.
Is it one of the Great Lakes?
No. It's in Nevada.
You threw me off with Erie.
It's Lake Mead. That's right, Lake Mead. It's another famous mafia lake where they would just dump bodies and they would never be seen again. So Lake Mead got so low, they started finding that stuff. Well, Lake Tahoe, they haven't really found that stuff, but they know that they did it. But they found stuff in Pyramid Lake, and that's how they figured it out. It's
so frightening to think that most cave systems are probably just volcanic tubes.
Dude, there's a reason I don't like spelunking.
When you think about, like, have you seen I don't really advocate watching a ton of Joe Rogan podcasts, but have you seen the one that he did with, I think it was Forrest Galante, where they talk about Sondoon Cavern? This
Yes.
7-mile cave system that's like you could fit skyscrapers inside of.
No, not just skyscrapers. The Empire State Building. Skyscraper.
Just a cave system. I've played enough Minecraft to know that lava fills a pretty crazy amount of space. Like, it actually blows my mind to think. So if you think there's enough water to submerge all of Earth below the crust, okay. At one point, every above ground cave was probably a below ground volcanic tube, which only makes sense as to why most caves lead down into the earth. You're following the path of magma, and it's Occam's razor. It's going to go down.
No, I totally think this is why most cultures around the world have people in the tunnels kind of story. Yeah, you find a big cave, you don't know anything else in the world. You just assume
Atlantis, bro. Like how do we not know that there's not just a bubble? Like just like Journey to the Center of the Earth, there's not just like a bubble somewhere. They have their own enclosed ecosystem. They don't. You know, they have humidity, they have condensation, and it's all just forms from the difference between the heat and water coming through ocean part. And they had access to the surface at one point, and now they don't. It like the more we learn about geology and the crazy things about our planet, the more it's like, oh, Atlantis could exist. I don't believe Atlantis had like crazy futuristic technology or whatever else, but the fact that a city could be blocked off from our current technology and just exists separate from our current world is not unfeasible because of how insane, like, the ocean literally reshapes our world constantly. And that just blows my mind. Between tsunamis and everything else, it's just like volcanoes and tsunamis are literally terraforming our world all the time. And we just have to deal with it.
I don't have my full rock collection with me. I have a lot of better rocks for this kind of purpose, but like just to show like the variation of minerals. Like look at this rock, man. This is my marshmallow rock. It looks just like a marshmallow, a toasted marshmallow.
That's
and
crazy.
Totally natural. I found this just like this. Haven't done anything to it. Smooth. I mean,
it looks like you're just toasted a bun.
Right.
Like, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
Take a bite. It's as hard as a rock.
Now the craziest part. This is like, I think this is an agate.
I think the white part of it's an agate.
Man, how do I keep
just that
place?
One round edge?
No, the whole thing is an agate. It's hard to tell, but like you can see it's kind of transparent. It's glowing. Like right there, you can totally tell. It's partly transparent.
Yeah, so at least where those white bulbous parts are.
Mm-hmm. It's either quartz or agate, and that's the hard part, is trying to define the two. But typically, quartz forms in sediment.
Tighter.
Yeah, it needs clay. It needs certain environments. This rock is so smooth; it looks like it's been tumbled, and that's why it's like this. I found this in the mountains, man. Like on top of a mountaintop, like.
So one would almost be from water eroding soil and pulling minerals together versus the other one being the minerals being pulled together by like the sway of the ocean or literally just being the formation of volcanic material hitting the ocean and then being tumbled. Interesting.
Yes. Yeah, and actually checking the whole thing, it all glows. The whole thing glows. It's just very thick, and now remembering back, I found this in an old mine area, like in a riverbed, dried up riverbed. So this most likely was a river tumbled, but like, yeah, I mean, if you look at that and then you look at something that's been tumbled and polished, similar thing.
Obviously, you can tell the polished one is going to be more luminescent.
Yeah. But you see those same colors.
Yeah, that amber and the white.
Mm-hmm. No, it's incredible. Like, and that really shows how various the effects are with how these environments change the way we observe it, or the way we observe these environments is various because our knowledge, for one, who records it, what they think they see, it's word of mouth. The whole thing's word of mouth, unless you have that physical evidence. But again, when things are changing and shifting, sometimes you just don't have that. You don't have the luxury of going back.
Yeah, you see it once, and the next time you see it, it's not there.
No, exactly.
Or you don't have access to it. Water levels in the caves have risen, and now it's inaccessible. You hear about that all the time, especially spelunking.
This is a rock I got in the desert. That's a blue agate.
Interesting. You can see the strip, yeah. Jeez. In the desert.
Yeah, when you think about it, it's like, why are there geodes and things like this? Having that variation of biomes that have come through, where, if you had an aquatic environment, you could see stuff like this. You could have those environments where those things form, or at least they got transported to those areas. So this rock could be from Indonesia, for all I know. Like, that's what I'm getting at is, to me, it's like you're traveling the world by exploring what's around you. And that, I guess, is kind of the whole discussion I wanted to bring today with talking to you about Canadian ways of life and how you guys adapt to the nature and the environment around you, or at least how you've grown up to see it and how it may be different from the way I've seen the nature around me, because we both have lived in the Rocky Mountains, and you and I both know the Rocky Mountains aren't just one place. It's a ginormous span that you'd be lucky to explore every reach of in a lifetime.
I don't think you could.
It's impossible. Yeah, it's impossible.
You need a couple lifetimes of dedicated trekking. I don't know.
Yeah,
that'd be incredible if you could.
By the time you do it, you'd have to go back because it's all changed. So picking your favorite spots and enjoying the moment is probably the best thing I could say with all this stuff. Because, I mean, look, this clam was enjoying this moment before it became this, and now it just lives in fossil land, and it's something I can, this was life at a point. And then now I'm just holding it. It's not even, this is mineralization. So this isn't even that organic matter at this point. It's just mineral. So again, these are the building blocks of life. And finding value through that can be a very healing thing. Being able to connect. An enjoyable feature that you resonate with. For me, it's survivability. Again, why is this rock so smooth right here? This could have been like this, all bumpy and rigid, and that's the stuff that fascinates me. It's wow, I found this, and that's unique to me. That's a moment that's why I picked this up. So I take it with me. I don't have this anywhere special. I have it in a box, but I don't need to look at it all the time because it's in here. It's in here. I look around, the metal in this, that came out of the earth. I came out of the earth, essentially. I'm a culmination of minerals and water and whatnot. Just we're all from this system, and that's, I guess, the part I'm getting at with all of this is it's not a bad thing to not understand, to be out of the loop and new to something. But it's unfortunate to hinder yourself from taking the chance to discover something new just because you don't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, observing the changes, whether it be the geographical changes and observing the phenomenon that is that, but even just the social changes and how people adapt to the world changing around them is something to watch and draw some of that experience from and draw some information from, so you can better deal with those situations that you lack understanding in.
Exactly, man. I mean, it's like there's literally a new rock that people collect. Sea glass. Like, sea glass has not been a thing for forever. It's been a thing since glass was a thing. Like, manufactured glass. Like, again, agates are sea glass. This is literally a sea glass, like an aquatic source, but a sea glass manufactured becomes something that people make jewelry out of now. People, they spend time just looking for that, looking for those things. And it's because that natural process, I feel like that makes it feel more connected. Because let's be honest, you could produce sea glass artificially if you really wanted to. It's, it doesn't have to necessarily be super special. It's not going to be the same though. It's you're not going to get that natural element of the ocean. Like, you could never emulate the ocean. So
yeah, we don't have the ability to recreate that type of force. That we don't even understand the entirety of the force of the ocean. So, exactly. To try and recreate the exact circumstances, you never get a consistent product.
So that's kind of where I was trying to draw this, and I know that was a long drawn out thing, but I guess with mentioning the Rockies and all this stuff, it's interesting because that's always been a part of my upbringing, is being around fossils that are from the coast, and to come from exploring the coastline and then coming to the mountains and finding the same things just in a different way. Like, it changed my life, like the way I view time.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed that you had this conversation about geology today. It wasn't exactly where I thought the conversation was going to go, but
me neither.
I enjoy it because what you just said there resonates with me, but I do it on the astronomical level, where looking into a star is technically looking into the past. And then when I was really young, I had this philosophical discussion with my stepbrother, and it was like, when you look into a star, you're looking at light, you're looking at an image of light that may or may not be there still. You have no idea how far away it is. And all of the distance that has traveled since that light reaches you, and as that light reaches you, is moments from the past. It takes that time for light to travel to you. And in that time the light has traveled to you, that light is from the past. That light could be from before the Earth was born. We really don't know.
Yeah.
And well, probably not visible light, but things on our non-visible light spectrum could quite literally be from before the Earth was born that you're seeing an instance from millions of years ago just now reaching you in the moment. And as that light passes, this moment that the light reached you, that light will never see the same moment again, but will reach something else in another 2 million years. And it's just a weird concept of, like, it really ages you and gives you a perspective of how insignificant, 20 years, 100 years is in the span of millions and billions of years that it takes mineralization and continental drift and things to happen. And it's a really cool thing to watch the progression of our planet over such an incredibly long period of time in such a very small moment, just by seeing a fossil or just by seeing a cave system that took however long to create and then however much longer to be exposed to be able to be explored.
Yes. Yeah, like that cave in China. I mean, they didn't even know it was there. I mean, it's just amazing, like, that we're still, with how many people have traveled around and explored. And granted, you know, maybe some of this was very well explored at a point, but
never
wasn't
documented.
recorded. Exactly. It is one of the things that makes me happy to live. Like, it is valuing our connection with this place. You know, what existed here, what walked here. Like the soil. People don't think about soil unless you've really been around agriculture, or you have a reason to move soil. Maybe you're doing trenching for plumbing or whatnot, you know, and you have to deal with it. It's in your way, right? But a lot of people fail to realize that that's living. You know, there's just organisms and again, minerals and various things that mix and create this environment for life. And again, without living soil, we would be screwed. We would absolutely be screwed. We need those organisms to regenerate and thrive, for us to thrive. The things that we can't even really visibly see unless you take that time to focus. And it, like you're saying with the stars, we have light coming at us all the time. Why would that be special, right? But it's special because you thought about it. You took the time to associate life to it. That's why
Right.
I live through rocks, because it's like, this is going to outlive me. You know, I don't know where it's going to go.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. It's like there's a connection there, because it's that rock, you could die, but whether that sits on a shelf or it gets passed down through your family or everything else, someone else will eventually experience that rock. Something else will eventually experience that rock. That rock will still be here in quite some time. It'll take a very long time for the forces of nature to break down that rock. And when they did, the trace parts will still then become a part of something else. Maybe a different rock, maybe a different creature, maybe a different whatever. It's always there in a form, but you got to appreciate it while it was there, and you got to appreciate it outlive you and surpass you.
There's a cave in Colorado called Cave of the Winds, and there's a famous stalagmite inside of this cave. I'm trying to find a picture of it. I'll just, you can take my word for it on this. I've seen it, and they used to allow people to touch it back in when they made the cave system public. And we essentially had a tour guide tell us that this rock changed because of how many times people touched it and the oils on their hands. It changed its shape, and it actually like looks like it's melting and eroding just from under 100 years of
tar oils and Interesting.
Yeah,
just erosion caused by the contact of human hand.
No, exactly. So that was like the main thing that they emphasized, is we're trying not to do that anymore. We've learned from that, and again, like cave systems are so old that it's hard to think that we just now figured that out. But without recorded knowledge, people don't know where to find that knowledge. It might as well not exist.
Oh, come on, we can still just send canaries down into mines and see if they're okay to mine in.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The mining is a whole another realm of craziness.
We're so good at dealing with tunnels, dude. We should just start exploring those tunnels rigorously. Government funded.
Yeah.
We should let anyone just jump into caves, honestly.
Right. Well, and honestly, I'm sorry I pulled us down such a rocky topic, but yeah, I think
jokes.
I think that's just something we can relate, even though again, like stars, that's cool that you saw, because we both see the same stars. Like, essentially we both see similar rocks. So we can relate in some form. I mean, I'd hope that in Iran or in China or Poland, there's some rocks that I'd recognize and maybe conversate with someone over that rock. Like, yeah, maybe that's weird to some people, but to me, it's like, well, it's pretty cool to see that your Earth over here is human too, in concept. Like there's at least that dynamic of connection that we can come together on, because it's natural. It feels natural to be around these things, and I think most people are happy in natural environments.
Well, yeah, there has to be something to be said. Like, I can only assume there's some biological wiring too, from when we literally lived in caves and we were a cave species. I have to assume that during that time we developed a bit of an affinity for certain rock formations and the way certain rocks looked. So I imagine there's a part of it that's just fundamentally hardwired into us as human beings, and that might be some of the connection to rocks. But then again, I would like to put stock in what I said earlier about the dispersion of materials throughout the universe, and there's a residual energy, and just the fact that matter exists at all exists together harmoniously with all the matter around it, sometimes destructively, but mostly harmoniously with the things around it. It is just a profound concept, honestly, to think about.
Well, and I'm glad you tied that back, because when I looked up the agate crystal meaning, according to what a lot of people feel, they feel agates symbolize strength, protection, and courage. And I think that's very interesting, because looking at the rock, I see that, the rock has had to stay together. It's had to, it can't crack under pressure.
Yes, intense pressure.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you think about all the grains of sand. A lot of that sand comes from agates, stuff like that. So it all, it's a natural, in a sense, it's a natural selection process. Rocks don't discriminate. It just sounds funny, but it's
one rock this one time called me fat, so
so I broke.
I don't want to hear it.
I broke down.
Rocks, you discriminate. I'm going to compare one rock to the whole world.
Yeah, that's a pretty rocking point.
My pet rock made fun of me.
Well, this has become a geological episode. I didn't mean for it to divulge this far.
I
We
apologize for all the geologists we're probably going to offend with our lackluster geological facts and knowledge.
well, that's the thing, man. It's a case of interpretation. It's very similar to art. Just it really takes the form of whatever you see. I mean, like people naming mountains that look like a horse, or a a boulder that looks like a face. Like, oh well, then that boulder magically becomes face boulder. Oh yeah, everyone's duh, that's face boulder. Why wouldn't it be? Like, this is we have a rock that's called Doggy Rock. I'll let you guess why. Yeah,
it resembles a horse.
Oh, exactly.
I knew it. My inquisitive skills. This is why I became a detective.
Surely. I wanted to give you appreciation, Cactus, though, for making it this far today. And again, I apologize. We didn't really get into some of the other stuff. I wanted to touch on other things, but I have a really hard time controlling my tongue with rocks.
It's okay. It's a 90-minute agate episode.
Well, I think it was great. Honestly, I mean,
I learned some stuff. I had fun.
Yeah, it's a very positive topic. A nice shift from the normal social show, and that's part of the reason I like it. Is you're able to draw back, pull inspiration from something that typically won't change much in your lifetime.
Yeah, it rocks.
It rocks. It had to be said at least once. I wondered who would say it first. Almost broke down and said it myself.
I couldn't close out the episode without saying it.
Well, hey, if you're down in the near future, we can do another one of these, and I'll have you lead us into Canada and the various wild nature that I know exists in that region of the world. Still very fascinated by what facts there are of your country.
I was just going to say we based our whole history around the evolution of the Canadian goose. It's central to the development of Canada. In fact, we bring one angry goose to every parliamentary meeting, and whoever it attacks first, they get to speak.
Oh my goodness. It's a white elephant, but white goose. That's so funny. Yeah, and a white elephant was definitely not the right metaphor. So I didn't say that. But
Editor Cameron, insert the metaphor.
Well, I mean, I just had to goose around, Like that was any better, but hey, gotta have humor in some things. Well, is there anything you'd like to touch on rocks before we close out?
Let me check my fun facts here and see if I posted any cool things about rocks.
Or not even just specifically rocks, but like places that you found inspiration and scenery. Like I guess What's the most inspiring place in Canada for you? How about that?
So that's tough. I've been a lot of places in Canada. I've seen Niagara Falls. It's Horseshoe Falls in the United States. Rainbow Falls? Horseshoe Falls. I can't remember what the U.S. side is, whether it's Rainbow Falls or Horseshoe Falls. But in Canada, it's Niagara Falls. It's one of the largest waterfalls in terms of like the actual amount of volume of water that goes over Niagara Falls.
It's insane.
Huge freaking waterfall. They used to let people go over it in barrels, but a lot of people died.
Could you imagine that?
Can you imagine the size of the cojones that you would have to have? I don't know how you would fit in the barrel with the cojones you would need to get in there. But send me over, boss. I want to go over that in a barrel.
You know, it's like that South Park episode. Oh my gosh, I want to see this now. Where what's Integrity Farms owner? You know, everyone's favorite. When he had the big balls and wheelbarrowing, and everyone got cancer to get marijuana. And they, man, if they just did an episode stuffing their balls in a barrel and all South Park travels to Niagara Falls, that would have been so funny, man. They're just all stoned. Oh, dude, we're ready for this.
But yeah, so I've hiked a few different mountains in Banff National Park and through Canmore and things like that. I've been way up north and seen like the ice flats and everything else.
Ice flats? I'm not familiar with that. Is it like
the plateaus? There's a whole bunch of different plains that are mostly covered in ice. They don't get a ton of thaw up north in Nunavut and things like that. The amount of plateau that's up there is crazy. Nunavut, Canada actually has 50% of the world's polar bears. Just an interesting fact.
Really? Did not know that.
Yeah, Nunavut has 50% of the world's polar bears. And a lot of that area closer to Hudson's Bay is broken up into islands. But beside that, as you get closer towards like the Yukon and the Northwest Territories, it's just giant plains and plateaus of ice and just fields of frozen water that melt, that freeze over the plains. So there's a ton of really interesting scenery in Canada, and it'd be really hard to just be like, honestly, it might be Niagara Falls. Standing at the top and the bottom of the falls and just like looking out. But it's tough again, like standing at the top of a mountain and looking at a beautiful plateau or a beautiful panorama of rivers and streams and forests. It's both of them have a way of making you feel incredibly small and just taking a moment to stop and think, what forces existed to turn what was probably once a tiny stream into this roaring, raging waterfall, or what glaciers melted away or pushed against these mountainous rocks to create these jagged peaks and these beautiful peaks and these beautiful vistas that you can see from these different ranges. So I would be remiss in trying to label any one thing as the most awe-inspiring, because Canada truly has a lot of beautiful portraits and beautiful places to see. We have the tallest waterfall in the world as well. We have BC alone, I think, has like 136 different hidden waterfalls. There's probably more, but they're all like significant, like hidden attraction type waterfalls. You know, take a 3-mile hike kind of off the beaten path and then go up this really sketchy hill and you'll get to an absolutely insane view. And then like a beautiful swimming spot. And so I couldn't do justice to all the beautiful places that there is to see in Canada, but Niagara Falls and some of the mountain peaks in Banff and Canmore are probably certainly among them.
No, it's really cool to hear, honestly, man. I appreciate you sharing that, and I hope in the near future we can talk a little bit more about some of the other facts out there and dynamics of Canadian life from what you've learned and gathered from your experiences.
Yeah, I'd love to. This was an absolutely wonderful conversation to have today. I really enjoyed this. It was a great way to kick off my Sunday.
Me too, man. No, I really genuinely appreciate you showing up. It means a lot. And this is something I want to start doing a little bit more of with the World Networking podcast. I'm going to also start doing short segments, probably 20-minute long videos, talking about philosophy and kind of that philosophic nature of things, and inspirational quotes, things like that, or things that I've stumbled upon that have stuck with me, or maybe in a moment can really refer me to a better mindset, because I have lately been struggling with depression and like creator's rut, not feeling like I'm doing enough, and it's a struggle, because really I'm doing a lot, but I'm pulling myself to do multiple things, and then it feels like the progress is so slow. But it's a good reminder to look again at things that take time, and remember that you have to be patient to craft something into something you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, well, on that note, I would like to point you to a lot of the famous paintings of the world, a lot of the Renaissance masters. It took people 50, 60, 150, 200 years to appreciate their paintings for what they were truly worth. You have paintings that sold for literal pennies in the day, and nowadays will sell for upwards of 20, 30, 40 million dollars. And that's just an absurd concept, but it just goes to show you that sometimes it takes time to appreciate beauty, and sometimes it takes time for beauty to develop.
What a wonderful way to wrap this up. I don't want to say anything past that. I think that was wonderful. I totally agree. Well said. It's been a pleasure today, Cactus. And we'll see you guys on the Intellectual Adventure podcast when we get together next, and we'll be redesigning a little bit of the shirt logo. This is our first batch, and we wanted to test to see how things, how our logo design kind of flowed. And this one got a little elongated. We're just we're not graphics artists, so we're doing this on a budget. So
we're a new project. We're just developing. Yes.
I'm hopeful for our next batch to be a little less stretched, but these shirts are feeling great. The material's comfortable, very breathable. I'm very impressed. It's not a heavy shirt, so something
that's really good to hear.
Yeah, no, this is something I definitely recommend if you're looking for something a little colorful. I don't think this is a bad choice. I mean, I'm happy with how it turned out. It's
yeah, I like it. The back's not even bad. It's mostly just that front logo.
Fine. The back's fine. It's
yeah, it's mostly just that front logo. That looks good, honestly. For a first batch, for like a very first batch, first run of merch for a logo where we're actually like, it's not just AquaticCactus or something like that. It's not just a static brand. Like, it is a brand, but we're trying to like bring hype to dynamic. It. You have to have, yeah, exactly. There's pop to it. It pulls you in. I think it's great. Honestly, I think we did a good job, and I think that as a starting point, it's freaking fantastic. I couldn't really ask for a better starting point, because it gives us a really strong foundation to build on. And I'm excited for that.
We'll be publishing some stuff soon about when the shirts get changed, and I'll make sure to update intellectualadventurepodcast.com with relevant information for everyone. And I also appreciate Cactus. I just wanted to shout him out here for taking the time to set the merch up and make that effort. Cactus is really appreciated, and you've really taken a lot of time and discipline to be a part of this project. And as a co-host with you, I couldn't be more proud.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that recognition, and I really appreciate the effort that you've put into all of your projects recently. It's been an inspiration to me to keep creating content, and whether that be through my live streaming or through the podcasting, which has just been a lot of fun and has challenged me both in my professional career and my personal life. And I just enjoy where these conversations take us, and I enjoy learning. Honestly, it's always fun to experience someone else's passions.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing I've gained from these projects is wanting to learn more, which collectively is amazing. I that's the best part to me. Staying fresh and relevant, in the present. So, with that said, I want to dismiss Cactus and let him get some rest. He's had a.
Need to go.
Yeah,
He won't let me go. He's here.
We'll have more conversations in the future here, and I really appreciate you guys joining us along for this episode today of the World Networking Podcast. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much for being a part of the show today. I really enjoyed this one, and man, I could talk about rocks all day. I'm sure you're convinced after this one. And you know what? I can't make any promises that the rocks won't have another appearance. They're kind of the co-host currently, because they rock. Anyways, I appreciate you being here, and I am going to be releasing another episode with our guest, Eric. I have more information down the pipeline this week once the episode's released for you. So keep your eyes peeled and make sure you comment. Don't forget to rate the podcast if you can. Really, really helps us out. And I look forward to future with you guys. Thanks so much, and y'all have a wonderful day. Thanks for being at the World Networking Podcast.